to the official Gaffr podcast. My name is Jamie.
My name is Angus.
And my name is Dan.
And this is the EFL Fantasy podcast. And you are listening to the final part of the 22-23 season preview. How are you, boys?
Yeah, this has taken a bit longer than we thought it would, but we're nearly through them now.
Yeah, 24 hours. We had some technical difficulties, so we're doing this Monday night, but it should be released by the time you wake up Tuesday morning.
Yes, I was quite thankful we had technical issues actually because I was getting tired. So, for those who listened to the season previews last season, where we recorded all three in one night, you could probably guess we were pretty tired by the time the third one came around. I was literally nodding off for it. So, shall we get straight into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Same as usual, guys. Those who listen every week, if you could just give us a like, subscribe, and all that kind of thing, it really does help us grow as a podcast and reach more Gaffer players. So that would be brilliant. And I'm going to go straight into it. And the first team up is Wigan Athletic. And who was the guy who gave us the information, Angus?
Mick Owen.
Nick Owen. So he passed the information on to Angus. So, as usual, from the other two podcasts, key outgoings, incomings, predicted lineup, and best assets, along with a predicted finish. So, key outgoings for Wigan is Bayliss, Bayliss and Massey. Key incomings is Niambe. And the predicted lineup, so he's got two here because he's not too sure what formation they'll play, whether it's 4 at the back or 5, or some people like to say 3 at the back with wing backs. So, the first one is a 4-2-3-1. And that looks like it'd be Amos and goal, Niambe, Watmore, Kerr and Pearce at the back, Naylor and Shinnie as their central midfielders, and then Lang, Keane and McLean behind Wyke. If it's not that 4-2-3-1, it's likely to be the 5-2-3, which would be Amos and goal, Niambe, Watmore, Kerr, Tilt and McLean, Shinnie, Naylor and Keane in the midfield three, with Lang and Wyke up front. Best assets, he thinks Lang and McLean. Budget assets would be Pearce, Wyke and Amos. And under the radar pick would be Asgard. And his predicted finish is 10th to 21st. So, not really specific there. Well, I'll come straight to you, Angus. What do you think about Wigan's chances this season?
I think they probably won't be challenging the upper end of that predicted range from Nick. They're an interesting one, and they've got some interesting players there. I'm not sure how well they'll do. I do think they'll probably be in the scrap down the bottom, but I think they have a genuine chance of staying up.
So we could kind of compare them in terms of Gaffr to Rotherham, who we previewed in the second podcast, in terms of, staying up would be a success.
Yeah.
I think we'd agree on that. But there's a lot of cheap players there. So we talked about Rotherham yesterday in terms of maybe not looking at them in an attacking sense, but the defence may offer decent value. Do you think this could be the same for Wigan?
I go a little bit the other way.
Attacking, not defensively.
Yeah. I know that there has been some conversation about Callum Lang's position. I would like to point out that on the Wigan Athletic website, they call him a striker. So, just saying.
Or his own club can't be wrong, surely.
Well, apparently they can, but but I think that front four is potentially interesting. I think you might want a slightly better striker there, but the three in behind, I think, are all quite interesting. I know Nick is very big on James McLean, particularly as it seems increasingly that it's going to be the 4-2-3-1 with McLean on the left side of that. In which case, I probably agree that he could be quite an interesting one. We've seen him over the course of his career. There's ability there.
He's very direct as well. Obviously, Amy played for Stoke. He is very direct. He likes he's very old-fashioned as in terms of he'll just run at the fullback. either get a cross or a shot away. So 5.5, I think that's a good price for him.
I think he
considering.
will. I think he will be an option at that price. Unless it goes really badly for them, I think he might well be an option, a real option at times at that price.
Well, if they're going to be attacking, away for Gaffr, it doesn't make a difference if they're losing or not. If they're still scoring goals while they're doing it, if they're one of them sides where they're losing 3-1 or 3-2 or something like that. McLean, I had him in my first draft actually, just because that was with no research whatsoever, and I just saw him and I was like, he'll do as my cheap midfielder. Obviously, watching him for Stoke. Any of the other attackers on your watch list?
I think Callum Lang has had a very good preseason, and even as a forward, he's on the watch list. It's tough to justify with him being a forward, but he's interesting. But he's much more of a watch and see, where McLean is much easier to include.
Yeah, I can see Luke's frustrations with his position because if he was a 6 million midfielder,
Yeah,
he'd be very appealing, wouldn't he? But using this forward slot, which from the previous 2 years we know is like gold dust, you need to choose wisely. It'd be a bit of a gamble, but you never know. To probably see how they start. Are we definitely avoiding them defensively? No enablers in there.
I don't think there are. I mean, obviously they have one of the starting 4.5 goalkeepers. So for people looking at that, obviously there's probably about half a dozen teams in the league that have a 4.5 starting keeper, and they're one of them. So for people looking to take that route in terms of that price, Amos is an option. I know Nick said to me he's not entirely convinced that he's sort of championship quality, but it's a 4.5 keeper.
Yeah, true. Dan, anything you'd like to add on Wigan?
Just the signing of Niambe. I think when he turned down Blackburn, I think we all thought he might go to like a top six side, maybe be a squad player, and he's found his way at Wigan. So either his agents mucked up, or that's going to be a very good signing. I know he is 5 million, so he is that 0.5 more just from his experience in the league. But I don't think he'll be a terrible option if Wigan are defensively more stable than we think. I think that could be an option at some point.
And have you got any of the attacking players on your watch list?
Not really, to be honest. But I can understand why Lang and McLean could be options.
Right. We'll move on then. I
One
was
more
listening
thing.
yeah, go on.
You asked Nick for his pie opinions.
Yes, I did.
and he was very sort of enthusiastic about talking about pies. He said the best one is meat and potato.
Oh, okay.
He said he also said it's absolutely criminal that we don't have Galloway pies at the stadium, but he actually quite likes the ones they do have. He said he hasn't heard many complaints about the pies at Wigan, so there's a sort of high floor for you there in terms of your potential enjoyment.
Well, I've been to a lot of football stadiums following Stoke, and Wigan was by far the best pie I've ever had. I missed, God, I can't remember the score. I think it was either 1 or 2 goals I missed of ours. I had, was it 4? I had 4 or 5 pies. I'm not joking. I'm not even lying. I stood in the concourse just eating pies. I wasn't even drinking. I went for a butty though. Don't know exactly what they are. I'd never go for meat and potato because I'm guessing every area is the same. We've got our local pie company, let's call them. It's called Wright, and they do quite a good meat and potato. So I won't have it from anywhere else because it's weird. But I'll always have a Baltic when I'm away watching
Yeah, I mean,
Stoke.
he did say that was a little bit safe. So if you want to push the boat out a little bit more, I'm sure there's other good options there.
Well, that's some great, insightful information for these listeners who follow their team away. Make sure you get a pie at Wigan. we'll move on to the next team. Just before we do that, I was listening to the Championship Chat podcast earlier on, their predictions for the league. If any of you listened to that?
I'm about halfway through.
Did you hear Elliot's bit about Blackburn, about Nyambe?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was very interesting.
Yeah, apparently they put him a very decent offer on the table in January. He was obviously looking elsewhere, or his agent was. That offer was no longer available at the end of the season, so I think that's why he's ended up at Wigan. He was either that or sign on, so I'm guessing he decided to go play for Wigan. Right, Birmingham, my favourite team. This was done by Liam. I can't think of his Twitter handle, but Angus will credit him when he puts the tweet out for this. So key departures: Ivan Sanchez and Christian Pedersen. Key arrivals: wow, what a name! Przemysław. No, I'm probably not even close there. I do apologise.
Pochetta.
Pochetta, and oh yeah, it's one word. It's one name. I realised when I saw Dion Sanderson below. Yeah, we'll go with Pochetta. We'll never say his first name ever again. Predicted starting 11. He's put difficult to choose at the moment, but we'll have a go. We've been playing 3 centre backs, 2 wing backs, 3 centre midfielders, and 2 strikers in pre-season. So basically a 5-3-2. Etheridge or Ruddy, really not sure which one. This was sent to me though last week before their last pre-season. We are thinking it may be Ruddy. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
So it looks like Ruddy will get the nod and goal. Centre backs will be Robert, Sanderson, and Trusty. Colin at right wing back. Friend or Pochetta playing left wing back, but he said possibly still making a signing for that position. Bakuna, Woods, and James in the middle, and Hogan and Deeney up front. Best assets would be Colin or Bakuna. Underpriced assets, Colin, because he is 4.5 million. He what in season 1 was he 6 million?
I don't think
He
it
was
was that high.
5.5 or 6, wasn't he?
5 point. It was either 5 or 5.5.
I think it might be 5.5, not sure. So that showed how much how Birmingham have fell since then. Under the radar asset would be James at 4.5. He played 20 games last season, scoring 1 assist in 2. He's a younger player that started to shine throughout last season. Hopefully he can push on and get some more assists to his name. And league prediction would be a bottom half 17th. So Dan, I will come to you first on Birmingham City. Any assets on your watch list as of now?
Maybe the goalie, but I'm not convinced with Birmingham at all. I think they're in a bit of a mess. Colin will always be there or thereabouts, just especially now he's 4.5. But I just can't pick a Birmingham player at the minute, just with all the madness going on with the ownership and everything like that. Yeah, they're a massive wait and see for me.
Angus, what about you? Any on your watch list?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say we think they're going to struggle this year, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sort of writing them off. I think they'll probably do badly. I think they're in a real fight, but from a fantasy football point of view, even at their low price, I think they'll be, not trying to sort of dig them out constantly, but probably at the bottom end of the league. And you don't really want to be looking for players from teams that you think are going to be in the bottom 3, bottom 5 at best. If that's what you think, you're not really looking for players there, are you?
No, I'll try be nice for if there's any Birmingham fans listening to this. Dan, strikers, you go nowhere near Hogan and Deeney at 6 million, are you?
Not really, no.
Midfielders, Pochetta's down at 7 million. He looks like he could play a wing back, so that's a no-go. Bakuna, and he's 6 million, but even if he was cheaper than that, I don't think he'd appeal to me. I can't see him scoring many Gaffr points. I struggle where to look elsewhere. Defensively, okay, I'll try and find one positive at least. Colin at 4.5.
Yeah.
Can I make a claim for him?
That's
Yeah,
the
you can make it.
closest.
Yeah. Him or maybe the goalie,
Yeah.
Ruddy.
Well, I don't know. I'm tempted to take a punt because they're guaranteed to get a winning game week 1, aren't they? Because
Oh
they
yeah,
play
they
in
got
your
Luton.
Luton and they enjoy playing against yourselves, don't they?
Although it's normally the Bowyer's the jinx. Luton have terrible against Bowyer, so now he's gone. We should win that.
Yes. So I think before I offend any Birmingham fans, we'll move on from Birmingham because there's just no assets there. Obviously, if assets do come around with them, we'll cover that in our game week reviews anyway, won't we? So as soon as there is an asset to jump on, we'll be the first on that. This should be an interesting one. Hull City. A lot of change, obviously, with the new owners. A lot going on at the club at the moment. So Danny McDonald has provided the information here. Key outgoings would be Honeyman and King Lewis Potter. Key incomings would be Seri, Esther Pinnan. Would that be right? Why have I got this job when I can't say names? God, these are horrendous. Aliar, Tufan, Baxter, and Figueiredo. I'm going to have to say some of these again, aren't I? Likely lineup. So it would be Ingram or Baxter in goal. He hasn't put the formation here, and it's quite jumbled up sometimes.
3-4-3.
Right, okay, so that would be... It's how it's horrendous, how it's like this. Greaves, Figueiredo, and Jones. And then it would be Coyle, Sari, Slater, Alder, Fleming, Aliar, and then Esther Pinnan. Longman, or he might be replaced up front. I have just made a right mess of that. It's just how it was sent to me. I probably should have sorted that out before the podcast. No worries, though, listeners. If that sounded like gibberish to you, Angus is going to sort that out for you in just a second. Best assets. God, I've got to say his name again. Estepinen. Am I getting better? No.
No.
Okay, brilliant. Best budget asset would be Coyle. Under the radar would be Aliar. And predicted finish, 6th. So, Angus, come and save me from this mess. I'm not talking about them again.
I'll just let the listeners know. I told Jamie not to look at the predicted finish until he read it out.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Because I just wanted to see the reaction. I know that Danny is sort of very bullish on Hull this season, and they've been recruiting players since he sent that to me. So it's a little bit up in the air. I think obviously there's the biggest thing is Lewis Potter leaving. I can understand with the amount of money that was on the table, it's difficult to turn that down. Even with sort of an owner with more money, that's still quite a lot of money to come into a club like Hull. They're a strange one because there's some names obviously we know from last season who were decent players. You know, Greaves did very well for them. Figueiredo, you know, we've seen him do decently for Forest. Coyle, Fleming, you know, Seri, decent player at the level at Fulham. You know, we've seen both Ingram and Baxter. So in theory, there's some decent players there, but there's also a lot of unknown players there.
Oh yeah, a lot of unknown. I'm looking at them and I'm like, absolutely not. I can't get that. I have no idea who they are.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, in addition to that, they've added a winger, Cynic. They've added another striker, Tete. They're still looking to add more players, so that's going to be difficult with Hull, as we've spoken about on previous pods as well, where the transfer window is still open for the first 6 game weeks. They're one that really could do more business. I think Danny reckons that they could still be in for multiple players more.
It's going to go one of two ways because I've seen a lot of predictions out there in the last couple of days for league finishes, and I've seen some people with them down 20th to 18th. Then some people with them as high as 6th. So it's kind of like, which one is it? What Hull City side are we going to get this season? And I think the unknown puts me off quite a lot.
Yeah, I think early on it's going to be really tough. I mean, even a couple of these players that seem to be quite good signings, like Estupinian, he got 15 goals in the Portuguese league last year. That's not bad. Like you have to be at least be half decent to get that many goals in a not terrible league. Like but what is their team going to look like around him? Who's going to be feeding him the ball? Danny said even we talk about Ingram and Baxter. He said he reckons that's 50-50.
So that puts, especially when they're at 5 million as well,
Yeah.
they're not 4.5. So that's just a no go straight away, isn't it?
Yeah, and then he thought Elder or Fleming was quite close as well. So I think unless you're wanting to go someone like Coyle, who we know is a decent player at right wing back, it's very much probably going to be a wait and see on Hull.
But also the fixtures aren't great, are they? Like the first two are all right, Bristol City and Preston, but they're quite attacking sides, so they can even score against Hull. And then they go on to Norwich, Burnley, and West Brom. So that's like just a massive wait and see for me.
So you've got at least 5 game weeks there of having a look at them, see how they work. Because, a lot of these players have come in from foreign leagues who you have absolutely no idea about. They could be utter garbage, but then they could be absolute gems, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So would you say it's safe to move on and say, give it 5 weeks, game weeks, and then let's assess it then?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few players that we can sort of pick out to look out for. Estupinian is the main one. I also want him to do well so that Jamie has to keep saying his name.
No. I hope he just leaves in January like a massive flop and he just send him out on loan somewhere.
But a couple of these guys. I mean, Sinek has played for the Turkish national team, and that's so he could be interesting. Those are probably the two main ones that I've got half an eye on.
Is this Aliyar? Is he the other forward, which I'm not even going to try to say that name?
You mean Syed Manesh?
Yeah, how do you say it so? It's like you're like fluent in whatever language that is. Oh, God, I'm going to hate this season with these. I am. Hull need to be relegated, so I don't have to talk about them. Or promoted.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend any Hull fans. Promoted or relegated, I'm not bothered which one. Just away.
Well, I think the
me.
one thing that someone said the other day, which I think is quite right, is initially me and Dan said, whichever way it goes, there's no way Hull finish in the same position this season. So they're just going to finish in the same position this season.
Yeah. I do worry though, because with those fixtures, there's no guarantee they pick up many points in Bristol City, Preston. They then play those 3 difficult games. There is like a high chance they're on like 1 or 3 points after 5 games. And then does the manager, will he be under pressure? It's like there's just a lot of unknowns, and I'm not quite sure how patient the ownership are going to be.
Sacked, you're not top of the league, you're bottom. See you later.
Yeah.
Bring somebody else in from the
I,
Turkish
I
Super
am
League.
I am intrigued by them, because we could have they could be like players massively undervalued here.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because we have absolutely no idea about them, and that's probably what I don't like. I don't like not knowing what to expect.
So it might be like maybe 8 game weeks in, and if you take a punt on the whole play, you might be able to gain an advantage. So it can work both ways, but I'm not sure. I'm not gonna start with any game week 1. I don't think.
No. Anything else to add on Hull?
I don't think so.
No. Right, we'll go to another side that are in a big transition at the moment. It's Cardiff. They should have some better names for me at least. Was this done by FPL Corf?
It was done by Corf, yes.
Right, brain. So key outgoings then would be Flint, Drama, and Hugo. Key incomings, lots of them, but to pick out three would be Rinamoto, Sawyers, and Collins. Likely lineup would be Allsop and goal. Right back would be Romeo or Perry and G. McGuinness and Kipre at centre back, and then Collins or Bagan at left back. Rolls and Rinamoto in the middle with either Winter or Sawyers. Left wing would be Ojo, right wing O'Dowd, and either Waters or Harris up front. Best asset would be O'Dowd. Budget pick Harris if no striker is signed. Under the radar pick would be Olitane. He's not in the game yet, I believe. And then a predicted finish of 11th. Dan, I'll come to you first. Any names that stand out to you?
I think there's a lot of interesting options, but obviously with the high squad turnover, I think I'm going to just wait and see what happens. Like someone like Collins at left back, obviously joined the league, could be a decent option. Maybe the goalie Allsop if he does settle down. The number one position, they did sign Alnwick as well. Like he said, Dowder's always been like highly rated. I remember watching him years ago in League One, and he was tearing teams apart. But he just seems a bit unpredictable and being a bit injury prone. But at 5 million, there's not many players, especially attacking players at 5 million who could be an option if he's constantly playing on the wing. That could definitely be someone who should be on the watch list. And they just don't have any strikers either, so
Yeah,
they're
you
going
would
to
be
sign a
expecting them
couple.
to sign, wouldn't we? Really?
Yeah, see that
Mid.
they might
Go on.
sign. They might sign like a couple of decent strikers, maybe who's backup in other championship sides, who could then become really good options. It's just a bit of a wait and see.
I reckon
Um,
someone like Lyle Taylor, someone like him at Forest, because obviously he went to Birmingham England last season. Forest are just starting to sort their squad out ready for the Premier League, aren't they? I can't imagine he's going to be required. So someone like that could probably fit the bill. But yeah, I agree. Going forwards, you wouldn't do it at the moment. So Dowd at 5, good value. Not sure I'd have him myself. Defensively, though, because obviously Core thinks it's going to be Collins or Bagan at left back. If it does end up being Bagan at 4.5, that could be good value, do you think?
it could be, but I had Bagan last year, and I chose him over Big Marv, and that was a terrible decision. So I've been burnt with Bagan. But I think Korf has mentioned today on Twitter that he thinks Collins has got the starting spot.
So he's 5 million. 5, I wouldn't say they're unfair price, but like I don't really want to spend 5 million on them, especially when they're in this transition period. And this feels like it's a common theme for this part preview and part 3, because there's quite a lot of teams who are probably in transition.
Yeah.
Angus, do you have any thoughts on them, either as a team or asset wise?
So at the moment, I do have a Cardiff player in my draft.
Oh, okay. Who's that?
I have O'Dowda.
5 million. So what's your thinking there?
Just cheap.
He's cheap. I spoke to Corf briefly, and he convinced me that sort of he's been their best looking player sort of so far. And there is that sort of thought around him about like, oh yeah, if he can just sort of get a run of games in the right team, like, so it's potentially taking a punt on that at 5 million. I know Corf has predicted Waters to start up front, but the other option up front, who I've seen in a few drafts now, is Mark Harris, who's a 4.5 midfielder.
Yeah.
So that's the other one to really sort of look at for people is Harris at 4.5 particularly, if he's even just getting minutes regularly, even if it's off the bench. If you can have
As
a
an
4.5
enabler.
midfielder like regularly coming off the bench as a striker, there are worse ideas.
Chances are he'll get the odd return.
Yeah.
Throughout the season, wouldn't he?
I'm interested. 4.5. If I need that money, I'll be interested in that. Defensively, Angus, would you go anywhere near them? Most
Probably
of them
not.
all at 5.
I think at the moment, I know in course predicted team for game week 1, he had Perry and G playing centre back in a back 4. That would concern me. I think when McGuinness comes back, or even Morrison, depending on what you can give them, that will feel a little bit more balanced. But Perry and G and Kipre as a centre back partnership game week 1 would concern me a bit.
And obviously,
Also, want to bear in mind for those considering going without Teemu Pukki.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They do play Norwich, don't they? Game week 1.
Yeah, so it's probably a void then, isn't it, really, unless you want them like a Dowder and Harris as a cheaper player. I think it's a wait and see because the high turnover of players that they've had, it's going to take a while for them to settle in. So I think that's going to be another one. Would you like to add anything else before we move on to the next team?
Nope.
No. So we will go to the next team. Just bear with me just a second. Blackburn Rovers, and this was previewed by Elliot Jackson, the co-host of the Championship Chat podcast. So key outgoings would be Lenahan, Niambe, and Rothwell. Van Heck and Kadra return to the parent clubs. Callum Britton's probably the only key signing that they brought in so far. Their predicted 11 would be Kaminsky in goal, Britton, Ayala, Wharton, and Pickering. Travis, Buckley, Dolan, and Dak, with Brereton, Diaz, and Gallagher. The best asset should be Brereton Diaz if he stays. Obviously scored over 20 goals last season. Budget play would be Dak. He's at 6.5 midfielder. If he stays fit after his 2, terrible injuries, he could be great value. Under the radar pick would be Buckley at 6 million. And with the current squad, he's expected some signings. He thinks 15th before any new signings come in. So, Angus, I will come to you. Your thoughts on any of the assets at Blackburn?
It's theoretically of interest with some of those attacking players, particularly when you sort of list them off, but it feels a little bit, without sort of saying, oh yeah, it's another one to wait and see, but there is an element of sort of needing to sort of see them. With the new manager, that's the other thing obviously worth mentioning.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Jon Dahl Tomasson did well at Malmo, but this is very different to that. But there's obviously the personnel there. I mean, we saw what Brereton Diaz did last season. Dolan is a player we've been positive about before. Has obviously sort of last year was in and out of the team. Dak is the tantalising one. How much has he actually got left after those 2 injuries? Through no fault of his own, but it's just, what are you actually getting from him? How much of the player that we thought so highly of before is still there? That's where I totally understand people being drawn towards him at a price like 6.5. I think it's 6.5.
Yeah.
6.1.
But it's tough. You want sort of a bit of a look at how he actually looks for me. And then you've got a couple of these sort of interesting wide players for me as well in Hedges and Markande. Obviously, Hedges and Markande, they both bought in January, actually, both of them. Didn't necessarily get a lot of minutes. Markande got injured, I think, on his debut. But they're both potentially interesting. And at 5.5, if one of them gets in the team sort of regularly, they could be a very interesting option. I think it's probably telling that all the players I've mentioned are attacking players.
So defensively, Kaminsky obviously in goal, 5.5. Would you be keen to go there at that price?
Not for me personally. He's a good goalkeeper,
Yeah.
but I'm not convinced about them defensively this year. I think as much as we were unsure of him early on, Van Heck was obviously very good for them, and Lenihan was obviously big for them, and both of them have gone not really replaced, or not replaced. So that will concern me a little bit, and obviously the knock-on effect then on the keeper. Great if he's making saves, but like at that price, if you're not sure about the clean sheets, do you really want to be picking someone at 5.5 where you're not sure how many clean sheets they're going to keep?
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I'm guessing defensively, then you're not too keen on the assets. Pickering at 5.5. He reckons Ayala and Wharton start centre backs. They're obviously both 5 million. Callum Britton will be added to the game shortly, won't he? We're reckoning 5.5 for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I'd pay 5.5 there. Dak, obviously, we all know what he could do. Whether he can do that now, still, it's just a wait and see. But if he does come out firing and he is the Bradley Dak we knew from, say, 3 years ago, everybody's going to have him in the team at 6.5, aren't they?
Yeah,
He's going to
if
be
that's the case, he's going to be in a lot of teams.
The rest of the midfield. Dolan at 6. I think if he was at 5.5, I'd be more tempted. 6 seems a bit too much for a player who was in and out of the team a lot. We know he's a young lad anyway, and there is potential there. But I need to see more from him in terms of minutes and output. And then probably the big question is Brayton Diaz. In one of the chats that we were in earlier on, I saw somebody mentioning about Brayton Diaz. Like, wow, would you not go with him when he scored 20 plus goals last season? Dan, I don't think he's in your draft, is he?
No, he's not. I haven't even thought about him, to be honest.
No, I haven't. But why
he's
is
one
that?
because I think he's going to go before the transfer window ends.
That's a fair reply. If he stayed there, would you be tempted? But because I don't really see a lot of people talking about him.
It'd definitely be an option, but he had that great first half of the season, didn't he? I think he got 20 goals. Was it by January or something like that? And then I think he only scored 2 for the. I know he was injured.
And Blackburn themselves weren't great. They were when he
No,
got back from his injury.
yeah, I think it's just a wait and see, especially at 10 million. You basically probably got to take out Pookie or change your whole structure of your team to get him in. So yeah, so wait and see. Um, Dak's the main one though, isn't he? He could be if he turns up, he could be similar to Swift
Oh yeah,
from last year, where he's massively underpriced by about 2-3 million.
yeah. I think it's a fair price considering he hasn't played
Yeah,
barely any football in 2 years, has he? So I
I
think
know. Yeah,
I'd probably say
I
it's the
think it's
right
fair.
price. Anything else to add on Blackburn before we move on?
Just that they've been linked with a few players, haven't they? Josh Bowler. Can't remember anyone else.
Not that I remember.
Not off the top of my head, no. I saw the
Just
bowler
Josh Bowler.
link.
Yeah,
That'd be it. That'd be interesting to see how we would fare in the Blackburn squad. Next team then. Stoke City. So I'll run through this quickly. So in terms of key outgoings, they were really in the in the squad last season would be Tommy Smith, Joe Allen, Josh Madger was obviously on loan, and then Mario Vrancic has gone on loan to Croatia, I think it is. Incoming signings, Dwight Gale's now confirmed, Lawrence Smallbone from Southampton, Kilkenny, Harry Clark, and Aidan Flint. After watching us in pre-season, it's quite evident we're going to play a 5-3-2 until O'Neill just decides to change it on Saturday with no preparation. So I do predict a 5-3-2. Goalkeeper, I think Basic's just about got the nod. but I wouldn't like to bet anything on that because we know how O'Neill likes to change his keepers. But I would say basic. Harry Clark will play right wing back because we still haven't signed one yet. Wilmot's played left centre back, so I imagine he's going to play there, left of the back three. Aidan Flint probably in the middle, and then it'll be either Jagielka or the young lad Connor Taylor at right centre back. I was thinking Taylor would get it, but after O'Neill's comments in the week where he said some of the younger players have stayed with the first team longer than he'd wanted, makes me think that Taylor could actually go out on loan now to League One. So that's a wait and see. So I think Jagielka, Josh Timon at left wing back. I think it'll be a midfield three of Smallbone, Baker, and then one of Lauren or Jordan Thompson. And then up front will be Dwight Gale with one of Jacob Brown or Tyrese Campbell. Obviously, if we did change to a 4-3-3, we could have Brown, Campbell, and Gale up front. I just don't know who would drop out of defence then. I don't like Timon as a left back. He's very similar to what we said about Ian Matson. He's a good wing back, but I can't imagine him as a full back. Best asset, Timon, I'd say at 5.5. He's got the potential with assists, and if we keep clean sheets. I don't think there's any that have gone under the radar, really. I do only think that there's two options, Timon and Baker at the moment. I can't see why you'd go one of the forwards when there's better assets in the league. My predicted finish would be 12th to 18th. Who am I coming to? Dan. Dan, I'll come to you. Any Stoke players on your mind?
Yeah, Timon has been for quite a while. He's close. He's close to getting in my game week 1, but there's like 2 or 3 others that could as well. So that will probably go down definitely to Friday before I make that decision. I think if I'm planning for more long term, there's a good chance Timon gets in just because over say like an 8-game period, Stokes fixtures are better than a 4-game period.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely been on my list. Maybe Flint, I'm not ruling that out, but he's 0.5 less, but I just think the upside for Timon's probably a bit more. I did like Baker last year. I had him pretty much since he joined, because I think he was 5.5 then, and I kept benching him regularly and missing him his points.
Just because of that price, you tend to do that, don't you?
So 6.5 maybe gets in the team a bit more, but is he still on pens, Jamie?
I believe so. I don't think we've
Even
had
with
one in
Gale
pre-season.
there.
That's the thing. Obviously, Gale played against Hearts on Saturday, but he came on like the 60th minute. So I don't know. I'd probably say he would be. You know, he runs out and I'm surprised he doesn't take goal kicks. He's one of them kind of players. But I've seen a lot of people saying that Baker was going to play as the deep line playmaker of the midfield three in the centre of the three. Watching the highlights from the Hearts game, doesn't look like that's the case. He was always the highest pressing player. Because obviously you know what it's like with these camera angles that you get. It was like the sky red button. I was watching it and I was like, who's that? Is that Brown? No. Is that Campbell? No. And it's Baker just running around like a madman. So I think it might depend on who plays because Kilkenny, if he plays, I think he'd then be the deepest of
Yeah, he would.
three. So I think it depends what combination O'Neill goes with. And as we know with O'Neill, it's probably going to be a different combination every single game. So, yeah, I think it's an avoid. Obviously, once Harry Suter comes back, that'll be a massive lift because I am no bias. I personally do think he's probably the best centre back in the league now. Dan's face.
No, he's good. He is good.
He is very, very good. So I think he'll obviously improve his defensively. But yeah, I don't think I can talk about Stoke anymore other than Powell. People will know Powell from last year if they're not aware he is injured, likely to miss the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. So don't go there. Angus, do you want to add anything on Stoke before we move on?
Simon's the main one,
Yeah.
but a word for one of our favourites as well, Jacob Brown.
He did very well last season. I'd like to see him do well again. My concern is his minutes now, rotating with Campbell, unless we do go to the 4-3-3, where I actually prefer him from the right, even as a Gaffr asset, even if he is a forward. I think he's more productive from the right-hand side. He's involved in a lot more than he is through the middle because he seems to he's there for his hold-up play. He'll just put his body about. So I think he'd actually get more returns from the right-hand side.
Yeah, but yeah, I think he's potentially an option. We saw him sort of come on leaps and bounds as a player last year, so he's probably the other one I'd say, not to start off with, but just to keep an eye on, particularly, if it's him and Gale up front, that could potentially be interesting, but again, it's sort of a bit, let's see how it plays out.
What are your thoughts on Gale? Because he's more than likely going to be the main striker. He's going to start. He's 8.5 million.
Yeah.
Is he an option? Because when people say like at work, people who aren't Stoke fans, what do you think of the Gale signing? I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I want to be happy because we know what he's done in the Championship previously, but the lack of minutes over the last 2 years is a concern on top of his age. What do you two think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you've covered the issues right there. I mean, in theory, he's one of these players who tears up the Championship, but he's older now. He hasn't played very much at all in 2 years. Again, it's sort of, is he actually the same player as the last time we saw? I mean, it's been a while since he was last in the Championship as well. Like, we sort of associate him with tearing up the Championship. Well, that's a little while ago now. So I'm a little bit reluctant to say, oh yeah, he's an option, but we know sort of what his pedigree is in the division, so it could be that he comes back and it's like, oh yeah, he's still got it. He can still, tear up the Championship. In which case, he then could be a very viable option at that price.
I'm just worried more about who's going to create the chances for him.
That would be the concern.
He don't create chances himself. He's in and around the box and he'll score, or he's played through 1-on-1, things like that. If you can't create him, obviously it would have been Nick Powell, but he's out for a couple of months. Do you have anyone to create a chance? That would be my issue, but it's a wait and see, isn't it? With Gale, obviously with his price at 8.5, there's so many strikers at that price that you're not going Gale over them at the minute.
Yeah, you can't go Gale over like a Pereira or Gyökeres or a Vyman, can you?
No,
not to start.
Not yet.
No. Right, let's move on then to Middlesbrough. We've got 2 teams left. Excuse me. Who did the Middlesbrough?
Bear with me just one moment.
There's a lot.
Harvey.
Surprised you didn't do it, Angus.
No, I did not. I have thoughts, but I didn't do the preview.
I done Preston.
Right,
well, I found a Middlesbrough fan. So.
Right, a lot of writing here, so let me try and get through this as best as I can. Key outgoings, Jed Spence, which will hopefully fund Wilder's budget that we all need. God, that threw me then seeing Jed Spence, because obviously I know he's on loan at Forest, but I don't see him as a Middlesbrough player.
Well, judging by Spence's statement after he left, he didn't see himself as a Middlesbrough player either.
Key incomings then so far they've had Ryan Giles and Lenihan come in. Likely line up a formation. Now this is where there's a lot of text, so I'll try and not mess it up again. Will most likely be a 3-5-2 or 5-3-2. Same things to me they are. That's the same formation to me. I call it a 5-3-2. Then wing backs. I know they're attacking, but still defenders. Like we often saw last year. Impossible to predict lineup as Wilder rotates often, but will most likely be Stefan and goal. Fry, Lenihan and Dyke still as centre halves. Giles and Jones as the wing backs, Howson, Tavernier, and Crooks as a midfield three, and with 2 forwards to choose from now. So Watmore and Coburn. So we know they need to sign strikers, don't we? We've been saying it all summer, so we've been waiting for that. But he expects a few more signs to come over the next few weeks. Key assets will be Matt Crooks, Isaiah Jones, and Ryan Giles. Budget assets, there's not really any budget, but maybe Lenahan or Dijksteel. Predicted position, with what's he wrote here? With Wilder having turned our season round last year, having been 15th in the table when he came in and finishes 7th, Middlesbrough might be in for a strong year if recruitment is good enough, expecting a top 6 finish from them this year. Yes, that's interesting. Am I coming to? Is it you, Angus?
Yeah.
Right. Start with. I'm just going to go through the team. So we'll start with the goalkeeper, Stefan, 6 million. Would you pay 6 million for him? Because you're taking a Middlesbrough slot as well, aren't you? There.
No, I wouldn't. I know some people have objected to the price. I think the way the game was priced up, he had to come in at 6 million. But I do think that there are other options that mean that the bigger issue for me is that he's taking up a spot at that price. I wouldn't do it.
Right, so you got your defenders. You got Jones and McNair at 6.5. So Jones obviously right wing back. McNair, what have I missed here?
So
Why is McNair in that starting back three?
So there's been some skepticism from a number of places. I know you watched a Borough breakdown where they were skeptical about whether McNair would be in the first choice team. It seems to be, particularly judging on pre-season, that this Dijksteel, Fry, Lenahan back three does seem to be the preferred one. It does seem to be backed up in the selection. So I'm not sure what's up with McNair or whether he's viewing it as a bit more of a rotation at this point. But at least judging by pre-season, there does seem to be some smoke here to these rumours or to this speculation that he might not be in the first choice team.
Well, that's McNair's Gaffr career over then, isn't it, really? Because people only wanted him because he was on penalties. He's not actually that great, I don't think.
Well, I was going to say watch him play game week 1, but he can't play game week 1 because he's suspended. So,
so he definitely isn't going to play in game week 1 then. So that solves that one. So we've got the wing backs. They're the ones who are attracting all the interest, aren't they? Jones 6.5, Giles 6. Which one do you prefer? Or you're probably going to say you're having both now, aren't you?
So in my first draft, I have both. I've gone down to one in part just to spread, I guess, my coverage a little bit more rather than the money. And I've stuck with Giles. It's partially about the 0.5. It's partially that he has been absolutely flying in pre-season. I know Jones has just scored this goal against Marseille, I think it was, where Middlesbrough said he ran the length of the field. He got the ball on the halfway line. If that's the length of the field, like, I'm sorry, we need to we need to have a serious conversation here about goal descriptions. Like, it was very good, but it was not the length of the field.
And we've got the centre backs and Fry, Dijksteel, and Lenahan, all 5.5. Can you justify 5.5 when you could pay, 0.5 more for Giles or the extra million for Jones? Would you go there for the centre backs?
I don't think so. I think the one thing that I've thought about for particularly further down the line, depending on how it goes, it'd be very all in, but is potentially having triple Middlesbrough defence. I think that's the only time you'd pick one of the centre backs, because I think Jones, we saw how good he was last year as a midfielder. He's now a defender, so he gets all the extra defensive points. Him and Giles, like, you're not really going to pick one of those centre backs over them, even for the saving. Dijksteel's probably closest, though, in terms of that.
Yeah. Dan, which defenders are you on at the moment?
I'm on Jones. I just think I've seen him in that Middlesbrough setup for a year. I'm willing to pay that 0.5 more, just from what I've seen last year.
Yeah, I'm quite torn, but I don't even know what the right word is. So it's not bias, but I'm going to use bias. But do you know when you watch somebody and you're like, wow, like Isaiah Jones was
Yeah.
class against us last season at our place, and then I can't get that out of my head every time I think of it, I just think of that performance. So then I tend to like gravitate towards him as an asset. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but I think I'm going to end up. I will be on Jones, I think, but there's a high chance I end up on both.
I think if the fixtures were better, I think a lot more people would be on both. It's just
What are the
West
upcoming
Brom.
fixtures?
They got West Brom, QPR, and Sheffield United first three, so that's too dodgy. Although for defensively, they could keep 2 clean sheets there quite easily.
I mean, they could keep 3 quite easily.
They could, yeah. It'll probably be QPR that score against them, though.
Yeah. Midfield Angus. Seeing a lot of people talking about Tavernier possibly as an option at 7. I like Crooks at 6.5. It's just his yellow cards are a nightmare. But I am tempted. I was going to go for a cheaper midfield. Probably like having Aware as my most expensive at 7. I was trying to work a draft like that. What are your thoughts on the midfield options? Is there any more than them two?
So Tavernier, I'd be a little bit concerned about. There's obviously been reports around of Bournemouth being significantly interested, Forest being interested, and possibly 1 or 2 others. Wilder has been quite clear that it's going to take a significant amount of money to get Marcus Tavernier away from them, which I'm not surprised about. If he stays, I think he's a very good option. But there is that element early on of, if he stays, which would put me off slightly. Crooks, we know, he puts himself about, gets into the box, gets on the end of deliveries, which when you've got players like Giles and Jones.
This is what I'm imagining, Angus. I can see the goals in my head already.
Yeah. The interesting one, I think, that the more I've sort of looked into it from the preseason is McGree. Until they sign strikers, they've been playing almost a 3-5-1-1 with McGree as sort of a 10 behind a striker.
So 5-3-2, but with an attacking midfield rather than 2 forwards.
Yeah.
I'm awkward. I have to picture it in a certain way. Right, okay. And what price is he? 6 million.
Yeah. I don't think that will last because, all we've heard is about all the strikers they're in for. Wilder talking, I think, in the last week about how they've had offers in for 3 strikers in the Premier League. And so I think as soon as they bring in a striker, that dream...
It'll be going straight in my team as well. Whoever they bring in will be going straight in my team.
It's
one of them. I'm just so excited for him to get a striker. Because it feels like that's the missing piece of the jigsaw, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the two
Connolly
they've got at the moment are
back.
Watmore and Coburn. Watmore is fine, but you wouldn't want to rely on him. Coburn, a young striker, they clearly think very highly of him.
He'll be a decent player, I think, from what I've seen of him.
They're reluctant to send him out on loan. They seem to want to have him around and actually play. So I'd expect him to get some minutes.
He'll have one good game in like 20.
Yeah.
Where he'll do something like a score a brace or something like that. I don't rate him. God, what else does it say about Middlesbrough? I'm quite excited for Middlesbrough this year. I think they're going to be a very good side.
I think they're 1 or 2 strikers away from a genuine automatic promotion bid.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I can picture them in the top 2 as soon as they get a striker in. Because that team's very good. I love it's just Jones and Giles at wing backs, not even just in terms of Gaffy, just them as players, that they're going to be so exciting to watch. You see how attacking Dijksteel is from right centre back. See how Lenihan settles in there. I like the midfield. Yeah, I'm actually positive about a club for once.
Yeah, and then they're going to sign like their striker signing is going to be someone useless like Aaron Connolly, and that's all going to go away again.
I hope it's Archie. I really hope it's Archie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the three
That'd
I'd
be a
seen
great
them
signing.
linked with were Muniz from Fulham, Adam Armstrong, and Marcus Fors.
Oh, Adam Armstrong.
That,
No, I'm
that's
not
that's
even
that's
lying. I
the
don't
that's
give a
the
fuck.
tantalizing one. That's the one that sort of like, that's the one that makes you sit up. That's the one that makes you sort of be like, okay, I don't care about the price he's in, sort of thing. Like,
Adam Armstrong would be in. I don't care about the fixtures. He'd be bang straight in that Middlesbrough team. He'd be straight in. For those listeners who are with your children, I do apologise for that word that came out of my mouth. You two didn't even notice, did you? I got carried away.
I was put off by the groan.
I got that excited about Adam Armstrong. Yeah, so apologies for that. Children, do not repeat that word.
Who had third preview podcast for when the PG rating would end.
I can't believe I slept up with that. I've had someone message me today saying it's not real, is it? And I was like, yeah, it says that's PG, I'm going to try my best. And he's like, I gave you 2 weeks in the game week reviews before you lose it with either Stoke or one of my players. Yeah, Preston will do me over. Yeah. At least I'm trying. At least I'm trying. Anything else on Middlesbrough before we move on to Watford?
I don't think so. I guess the only thing, as we've talked about, but just sort of watching it, is what actually happens with McNair when he comes back. Does he actually break up that back three? If he does, if he's playing, then we know he's good for bonus. We know he's potentially on penalties, so he's potentially very interesting. So it's just sort of watching that.
Mm-hmm. Right then, Watford, this is going to be an absolute nightmare. So, listeners, press pause, go make a brew, come back, make some toast. I don't know. We're going to be here a while. Right. Who did the Watford stuff? Was it Amra Batman?
Yeah, Joe
Amra Batman. Right, okay. Key outgoings. Foster, Sissoko, King, Cucho, Femenia, and then most likely Dennis and Saar. Key incomings would be Bayo, Manaj, and Okoye. Likely lineup should be a 3-4-1-2, which would be Batman and goal, Cathcart, Ikongo, Sorota at centre back with Samir, Kamara, Kiambe, Goslin, and Semi, and then Pedro behind Dennis and Saar. Obviously, that could change. Pedro could likely go front then as well, couldn't he? Key assets, obviously, Saar and Dennis if they stay. Kamara's wing back, plus whoever plays there. Currently, Semi. Joe Pedro. Budget assets would be Dalia Bashiru if he can become a starter at number 10. Under the radar would be Bayo and Minaj. Oh, that's it. I thought I hadn't removed the Middlesbrough stuff from underneath. That wasn't that bad. But Dan, I'm going to come to you. You get the honour of Watford. Try and predict what's actually going to happen with them.
I have no idea.
No.
Luckily, we've got 3 game weeks to wait because their fixtures are terrible. They've got Sheffield United, West Brom, and Burnley first 3, so that gets you closer to the end of the transfer window. So hopefully, a few of these question marks will be answered. But I think the first place to start is the new manager, Edwards, coming in. His Forest Green side, his wing backs were very attacking. Kane Wilson was one of them, got ridiculous stats. So if we can find out the wing backs, then I think they'll be like really good options. I think Kamara is pretty much nailed at left wing back, so maybe that's the punt to take. The first 3 game weeks, he's going to be very low owned because of the fixtures. Um, so yeah, maybe he's the one to look out for. Obviously, if they keep Saar and Dennis or one of them, they're going to be ridiculous assets. Although obviously Saar's, they're both 11 million, so only Pookie's more expensive than them in the game. And if they become options, that massively changes the structure of our teams. Because imagine if you got to go Pookie and Dennis, similar to last year with Solanke and Mitrovic, it changes the whole setup.
But also adding like then it's not just getting those two in your team, Pookie and Dennis. It's then choosing between Sar and Dennis.
Yeah, and then maybe you need Swift in as well, or someone like that. It could get interesting if one of them do stay. Obviously, hope they go. I hope they get relegated. But I think one of the interesting one is Sprilla. He's like a 18, 19-year-old who I think we thought was gonna get loaned out again, and they seems to be in and around it. He's 6.5. I'm guessing he's going to play maybe in the 10, so maybe that's why obviously João Pedro's playing there at the minute. But like you said, if they lose Dennis and Saar, maybe Pedro goes up front, and then maybe there's an option there. I don't know what you think, Angus, with the wing backs. I think the wing backs are the key for me.
Yeah,
so
I mean, obviously, we're expecting Kiko Femenia to be back again, who was obviously very good in season 1, and the weekend it was suddenly, oh yeah, he's off.
I was literally about to say, I swear I saw he got sold.
Yeah.
Like, you had me confused then.
Yeah, no. And then the weekend came around, which reminds me, for all these people who are talking about playing early boosts, I just want to drop in my Watford story. Season 1, I had Estupinian, not the one at Hull,
The
the one
left
who's gone
back.
to Villarreal, left back.
Yeah.
I had him in my team, thought he was going to be a great option. We found out that he'd been sold when the team sheets dropped for the first game of game week 1, and he wasn't there. And then they announced he'd been sold. So for all these people who are like, thinking about just something to bear in mind for the people who are looking at things like early boosts as well, is that's not a made up story. That's a real story. I had him in my team, and we found out that he'd been sold when the teams dropped for the opening game. So it can happen to you. But in terms of their team now, I like Kamara. I thought he looked very good last season when he came in. Interestingly, Joe said he's likely to be the right wing back to start until they get something sorted at right wing back. And Sema will play left wing back.
Sema will do a good job there. He was decent last time in the Championship, but obviously as an asset, not really a 7 million midfielder, isn't he?
No. It's also worth saying in that predicted team, it had Samir, who now looks like he's going. So that will be changing as well at centre back. We've got our old friend Sierralta back, who looked great when they got promoted.
He was class.
Disappeared during the Premier League campaign and is now back.
I can remember Joe like proper bigging him up when they got promoted.
He was great.
He's going to be a great option in FPL and stuff. He's absolutely class. I was like, yeah, he is good, but then fell off a cliff.
But I mean, really, it's the wing backs and then the forward positions. Because the midfielders, you're not going to get returns. I mean, I've been joking since the game dropped about Dan Gosling. Dan Gosling is not going to get you Gaffr points. If he does, it will probably be accidentally. Yeah, I mean, Saar and Dennis, I don't expect them to stay, but if they do, it obviously changes things dramatically. João Pedro, I had a complicated relationship with him in season 1. Picked him a couple of times. I think he did well for me in one game. but he's a good player. Still young. I think we'll see a good version of him this time around. The attackers, it's interesting as well. The ones they brought in, Bio, he's not been great. Like to put it bluntly, he's not been great in his build up to getting to Watford. I saw him play for Celtic, and he really didn't look up to much. So he might be able to establish himself, but it's not what I'm optimistic about. And then Minaj is the other one coming from Barcelona. Although he's barely actually played for Barcelona, despite the fact he's been there for a few years, which might give you some indication of how good he actually is. They're farming him out to sort of mid to lower table Serie A last season, so he's not nothing, but it's not necessarily the sort of signing you think about when you see he's coming from Barcelona. He's not really coming from Barcelona. But yeah, I think those difficult opening fixtures are actually very handy for us. It's something we looked at right away, saying that's quite convenient with Watford giving us a chance to see what's actually happening there.
So you're definitely going without them for them at least first three, just to, well, at least game week 1, and then just assessing them.
Yeah, because the thing is, we've spoken a number of times about the transfer window being open for the first 6 game weeks. But with Sarr and Dennis, they could make us think twice about that after game week 1, and we might think, even if they're only here for 1 or 2 games, that might be good enough. But it remains to be seen on that. But I'd be reluctant about picking them, to be honest.
Where do you think they'll finish? Both of you, I'll start with you, Angus. Basically, Sarr and Dennis leaving, because I think it's very likely they will. Playoffs?
Yeah.
Dan?
Playoffs, probably. Maybe a bit lower.
Yeah, I'm thinking just out. I don't like... It depends who they bring in, because obviously selling Dennis and Sarr, brings in quite a lot of funds into what they could use. So it depends who they bring in. But the way I look at them now, even I can't see them playing. I don't know. They don't excite me. I think there's better sides out there. But does that wrap us up then?
I think that's everyone.
That's all the team's done.
Yeah.
And have you got anything to add on anything?
No.
Dan?
No, I think we've pretty much sorted. Obviously, just keep an eye out on our Twitters, because if we find anything, we'll probably retweet it or anything like that. If we find like any major news. So yeah, that's basically it. Just make sure you're following us and the account.
Do we know if we are doing the Gaffr Fantasy outline on Twitter Spaces Friday, pre-game week 1 deadline?
I can make it if anyone else can.
I can make it. Angus,
I don't know.
Can't. You don't know?
Yeah.
Okay,
I won't know until Friday afternoon, basically. So,
what time is deadline? Is it 6:15 or 6:30?
6:30, I think.
It's going to be 6:30 deadline. Shall we say 5:00?
Yeah, sounds good.
Go an hour before deadline. So, listeners, make sure you follow us on Twitter. I don't know who's going to host it. If Angus is there, he can do it from the pod account. If not, I'll do it. So make sure you're following all 3 of us on the pod account. 5:30 on Friday, that's UK time. We'll do like a pre-deadline spacey. So if anybody's got any last-minute dilemmas and they want our help with, I'll happily let Dan or Angus offer their advice to you. So yeah, that'll be brilliant. But thank you for listening. I hope these 3 have been insightful for everybody. Made them decisions a lot easier for yourselves regarding your game week 1 teams. Yeah, good luck for the season. It is upon us this weekend. Huddersfield versus Burnley. I was going to say Barnsley then. Huddersfield v Burnley Friday night. Game week 1 kicks off. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.